Will the meeting please come to order at 6:30, please? Call to order. Pledge to the flag. Bruce, would you do that, please?
Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Councilmember Burton?
No.
Allman?
Here.
Gonzalez?
Here.
Alanese?
Here.
Mayor Stransky?
Yes.
Public communications. The City Council welcomes input from the audience. If there is a matter of business on the agenda that you are interested in, you may address the council when this matter is considered. If you wish to speak on a matter that is not on the agenda, you may do so at this time. In order for everyone to be heard, please limit your comments to 3 minutes per person. The Brown Act regulations do not allow action to be taken on audience comments in which the subject is not listed on the agenda. Members of the public are asked to observe the rules of decorum. While the City Council welcomes public criticism of policies, procedures, programs, or services of the agency, behavior that disrupts, disturbs, impedes, or renders infeasible the orderly conduct of the meeting, and that includes but is not limited to use of profanity, slurs, yelling from the audience, threatening remarks, physically threatening conduct, or physical or verbal displays of disrespect, will not be tolerated and the individual will be removed immediately. We have 2 items for public matters. Oh, no, public communications first. Anybody want to address the council?
I'm Madge Strong. Hello, Mayor and council members. I know this doesn't, okay, I'll project. In the minutes from last meeting, there was a mayor's appointments for 2025. And I note in looking at that Mayor Stransky is on 5 committees or agencies plus 1 alternate. Vice Mayor Alanese is on 3. Mr. Gonzalez is on 6. Mr. Allman is on 4 plus 1 alternate. And Mr. Burton is on 0 but 1 alternate. This is unfair to the other council members who must pick up the load. Council members having 4 or 5 other duties get spread too thin. It's also unfair to the city because we need our interests represented in city, county, and other agencies. Serving on committees and agencies is part of the job of a council member. There were 6 other applicants for the vacant seat that Mr. Burton is now sitting in. I'm sure that they would have gladly served in this way. Mr. Burton has the privilege, but also the responsibility to do so. I hope that will be taken into consideration and there will be some changes in committee assignments. Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes.
Good evening. I'm here to talk to you about a new business forum that's getting started this month. And I've got some flyers here. I'll put them on the table by the exit. I just want to let you know who we are. The name is called Willits in Business. We're a dynamic group of men and women in business. For those of you who attended Women in Business, it's very similar format, although we wanted to be more inclusive of both men and women, therefore it's called Willits in Business. So a dynamic group of men and women in business committed to strengthening our local economy. Each month, we'll come together to collaborate, share ideas, and support each other's growth. We'll offer valuable networking opportunities, bring in educational speakers, discuss the latest business trends, and provide inspiration needed to thrive in a small business world. Whether business owners are looking to connect, learn, or get motivated, we're here to help you grow and succeed. It is a free business-to-business. It's very much a grassroots business-to-business program. We're going to meet monthly on the last Thursday of the month, promptly at 6 p.m. at the Willits Center for the Arts. Our gatherings will include light hors d'oeuvres, networking, and lively discussions aimed at helping business owners in Willits flourish. Our speaker for this month on March 25th will be Julia. She's from the West Business Center, and she'll be speaking about merchant services. Many of us in the business community are wondering whether or not to charge or not to charge for those fees, and so we'll have a lively discussion about that. And then the following month, on the 29th of April, we'll be discussing technology and how we can stay engaged. So if any of these interest you, I'll put some flyers on the back of the table. Feel free to join us. We're hoping that eventually we'll partner with the City of Willits, and we've already spoken to members of the Chamber of Commerce, and we're excited about partnering with them as well. So always looking for ways to support local business. We started handing Danette from Essential Fleet Services and I started handing out the invitations just yesterday. We started at the south end of town, and we're working our way to the north end of town. But if we miss anybody or you'd like a flyer tonight, please grab one at the table. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Would anybody else have a comment or want to talk here today? This has nothing to do with things that are on the agenda. This is just things that are on your mind that you need to bring up to us. You may at this particular time.
Okay, now we're moving on to public matters. Little Lake Fire District monthly update.
Good evening. How's everybody doing?
Good, Chief.
Good. Quick update from the firehouse. Around the firehouse, we've been busy with the various inspections, the new business licenses that have been coming in. Change of ownership will also get an inspection, and we've been working with the city on the vacant building inspections, and we've been also doing these solar plan reviews. We're just about completed on the installation of the tablet command. I know last month I sent the report. I don't want to get too in-depth on it. The tablet command is a kind of a tracking and incident management system that the command vehicles will have, as well as the fire engines. They'll connect with neighboring fire departments. In the event of emergency, you're able to see how close they are to your incident to then give them direction to either grab a hydrant, block off a road, or whatever they got to do. Then it has a management side where you could actually manage an incident and set your 20-minute timers for interior attack, venting a structure, and stuff like that. So it's a good tool. We're almost done with that. We have purchased 5 new sets of turnouts, and they should arrive within the next 3 to 4 months. They'll come in and size the firefighters, and then they got to build them. So. Training for the month of March consisted of the 5-man engine company drill. We piggybacked off the first drill in February. Pulling cross lays, kind of basic simulation of a structure fire fight. This time we advanced it a little bit where they're going to start grabbing hydrants, water supplies, checking patterns and various techniques in case we have a structure fire. EMT refresher consisted of splinting techniques. We utilized our Sager splint, which is the long bone, some SAM splints, vacuum splinting we have, and various techniques along with backboarding patients. Outside training consisted of Windsor Mill. We held a fire extinguisher class for the Windsor Mill. Usually we kind of do that annually. I think it works good for insurance company purposes, and we offer that to if anybody owns a business or a class. We kind of do it with the high school as well for fire extinguisher training. So you're more than welcome to call the firehouse, and we'll come out and do that for you. And then we'll be hosting the 2 groups. I believe they're from the Imagination Station. I think there are 32 groups of 30 between the ages of 3 and 5. They'll be visiting the station on the 24th of March to go over fire safety, and we'll give them a little tour of the firehouse. As of the current date, we've responded to 121 calls for service and completed 658 hours of training. My last topic is just kind of informational. I hit on this kind of every time that I've spoken so far. Just the importance of a visible address. We're still kind of running into some situations, unable to locate addresses. I'm not sure if the PD still kind of runs into that as well for your calls, but I'll kind of keep continuing to mention that, and then once we get all caught up, I'll stop. The firehouse does offer free smoke detectors for anybody the ages of 55 and older, and as well as if your family consists of a 5-year-old or younger, come to the firehouse and we have smoke detectors for you guys. They do save lives, and we're currently looking for grants or funding. There was a First 5 program where we get funding for fire smoke alarms. That went away, so we're kind of just footing the bill, the fire department, to keep that going because of the importance of the smoke detectors. And then just a reminder with the current weather conditions, I don't need to remind everybody in here to drive safe, but if you have younger kids or new student drivers with the weather, just kind of remind them. I'd say 70% of our calls are traffic collisions with the 101, Highway 20, and the 162 corridor. Stay clear of any downed electrical lines. Just treat them all as if they're live. With the wind we've been having too, trees will hit the power lines. Just try to steer clear of that and dial 911, even if you're not sure if they're power or communication lines. The last thing I have is with the power outages, a lot of our elders are on in-home oxygen where they plug into their wall. They rely on that for oxygen. Just have a backup plan with them for that. Usually that'll consist of a spare bottle, oxygen bottle, to try to get them through the night or until the power is restored. We run into some of that too with the power going out. We'll get some medical calls for their oxygen going offline. And then just have a backup plan for the power, and then I kind of like just to stay in touch with loved ones during that event, check on everybody, check on your family, and see how they're doing. We got some people spaced out in Pine Mountain and Blackhawk, and it's always good to give them a call and make sure they're doing good in these times. So that's about all I had for my firehouse update. Yes, sir.
Your tablets will CDF or, CAL FIRE be able to interface with them?
Yeah, so they currently do now. Ukiah interfaces with them now where it'll cut down on some radio traffic. With the tablet command, you could hit your responding to that incident, and you don't have to key up on the radio. So that'll cut down a lot of the traffic. County Fire Red gets pretty busy at times with all the incidents in the county, and you get stepped on, walked on, and then they don't hear you responding or something. So it does interface with that, and they're also able to track it in their command center. A lot of the CAL FIRE units are on that as well. And then the tablet command, we could pull up like Sacramento, and you could see all their engines right now. When they had the Palisades fire, we kind of went to that area, and it was just covered with engines.
You go on a strike team and deploy that.
And that's kind of, why we got it. John Toman, he's a deputy chief. He currently has a strike team out in Lake County, and the engines he has that capability, so he can kind of set them where he needs them strategically and keep an eye on them if they need help or safety or something like that. Being out of an area you're not familiar with, you can just tap on it, and it'll give you directions right to that engine. So,
Good.
And that's good for especially Southern California, places like that.
Thank you, Chief.
Cool. Thanks, Chief.
All right, thank you guys.
Thank you. John?
Hey, good evening, Council, Mayor Stransky, Council, and City Manager and City Attorney. So I just wanted to update you on some of the things that are happening. And so tomorrow I have the talk with the supervisor at the Brick House. That's at 9:45 tomorrow for an hour. And then on the 27th of March, we're having this cannabis roundtable and it's going to be here at the community center. It's from 10 to 12:30. It's open to all the public to talk about some of the issues around the cannabis industry and how to make it more viable economically. And so we wanted input from all the community on that. And so we're having it here in Willits. Then on April 8th, we're having the Board of Supervisor meeting here at the Justice Center. And that will start at 9 o'clock. It's a Tuesday, and it will really focus on the budget this year. Okay? And because I'm the chair, we're bringing it to Willits. So, okay, opportunity for people to get out and see a board meeting in, live and right here. And then on April 14th, I'm going to have a town hall meeting at the fire station over in the training room, and that's going to be at 3 o'clock. And then if you can't make that because you're working or whatever, and then I'm going to have one on April 15th, the next day. That's going to be at Harwood Hall in Laytonville, and that's at 6 o'clock. So I just wanted to provide those opportunities to make sure everyone knows about them. Okay. I had a meeting with Senator McGuire last week. We talked about the budget. Certainly there's a lot of unknowns about the whole federal budget, the state budget, and how it's going to impact our local jurisdictions. He was saying that they're expecting $14 billion in cuts to Medicaid. And, when we have 47% of our population in Mendocino County is Medi-Cal eligible, Medicaid is Medi-Cal, then that could be a real serious hit to a lot of our constituents. And also $7 to $8 billion in cuts to education that they're expecting statewide. Okay. As far as the county, we're looking at, and we don't know too much, but we're looking at cuts to our grants. We've been working on these huge grants for vegetation management and home hardening and fuel reduction up in the Brook Trails area, and then also the second access routes. So we're trying to keep track of where those are at the federal level, because that's federal money. Okay. And then, the veterans were, when there's 70,000 people cut from the Veterans Administration, we're trying to figure out how that will affect the services we provide in the county. And then also I talked last time about the seniors and the Older Americans Act, which wasn't reauthorized in the last funding cycle. And, if it's still not funded, and if it continues on that path, it will be $1 million cut to senior services throughout Lake and Mendocino counties. And that could affect Meals on Wheels and a lot of the other programs that our senior center provides. So, there's a lot of unknowns out there, but I hope that people are aware and, make your voices heard that, what you think about these proposed cuts. So anyway, we're working on it, and I just wanted to provide you those dates too. All right.
Thanks, John.
If there's any questions or anything?
Mr. Mayor, I have a question for
No.
Supervisor.
Does anybody else have any comments to John? You do, yes. Okay.
Can you coordinate these meeting dates and the times and place so we can post it on our website as well?
Sure, I'll coordinate with Dolores. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thanks for being here, John.
Thank you, John. Public
No public
comments at all? Excuse me. Public comments on anything that you've heard? Thank you. Okay.
The enactment of ordinances, we have none. Consent calendar. The following items are presented, are before the City Council for approval or denial. The City Council minutes of February 26, 2020. 5.
I move the consent calendar.
Is there any public comment?
I did give Dolores a couple of very minor things, but my major comment is there's public comments listed regarding the closed session that took place. Actually, it took place the previous time, I think. Anyway, in that, there's a bullet that has a comment from me, and I would like that to be revised. I'd like it to say, Madge Strong stated that she found City Manager Bender to be effective and professional. Previous City Council publicly developed goals. City Manager reviewed progress publicly and in writing. If current City Council wishes to do things differently, give him direction. If we lose our City Manager, the city will suffer. And parenthetically, it doesn't need to be in, that's what I'd like it to say in the minutes if possible. I wanted to point out that we also, previous City Council also gave annual performance reviews to the city manager, and those are, I believe, in his personnel file, and I participated in all of those. I also wanted to say that if the closed session is deciding to give our manager a different direction than what has occurred in the past, it seems to me, rather than having repeated sessions in closed session, change in policy direction should be brought out in public sessions here at City Council in the normal way. The performance evaluations are a personnel matter only, and I don't think we've ever done 5 or 6 in a row of anybody, and I think it's somewhat excessive, and I don't expect that it's that productive. It ends up sounding to me like harassment rather than evaluation.
Madge, I think you're getting off the track.
Yeah, I just said the part that I would like to be in the minutes was those 3 sentences that I read. And the reason is I think the minutes don't fairly express what I was saying. All it says is that I raised a concern about multiple closed sessions. It doesn't say why. And I think it's important. I hope that council will direct that change. And I have copies of the proposed language along with the comments I made earlier. One for each council member, you can pass them down, and one for Dolores.
I actually printed the one you emailed me. Thank you.
Certainly my issue is that we don't put verbatim statements in the minutes. We concise them. So I know that we have a motion to approve the minutes, and I'm actually going to ask the maker of the motion if we can, if he could withdraw it and we approve these minutes next time at the next meeting when the minutes are concise to a very short thing, but not verbatim. That would be, if the maker of the motion would.
I'll let it die if it doesn't get a second.
Doesn't have a second.
So if no one wants to second it, I'm not going to withdraw.
We have a second on the,
No.
I'm looking for a second for the minutes.
They're gonna, I'm gonna take them back and
Okay,
bring them
thank
back
you.
next meeting. Any more public comment? Okay. The monthly activity reports, matters that do not require action by the city council but are of public interest. We have the February 2025 accounts payable activity report and building permit activity report. There were no new business license issued in February, so that's why that report is not there. Any public comment on that? Okay. Commissions, agencies, and authorities, there are none. The city manager's report and recommendations. The first item is the strategic planning workshop recap.
So this is more for the benefit of the members of the public. So last Wednesday, the City Council with senior staff participated in a facilitated discussion. It was a team building exercise wrapped up into communication skills, and it led to goal setting for this organization. And I just want to give a recap of what we developed and the next steps ahead of us. So the council identified 6 goals, and the goals are essentially public safety, quality of life, infrastructure, economic, housing development, growth, community engagement, and public communications, both from this organization to the public as well as the public back to the organization, and then resiliency. And that's kind of a broad, multi-faceted approach that we still need to refine a little bit more. It touches several of those items that are already identified and how we can move forward to refine it. So the next steps in this process will be, we haven't received the final, the comments that were revised from the facilitator. We expect to receive them later this week, and then we'll meet with senior staff, we'll review them, go through them, basically attach objectives to those overarching goals, and then bring them back to the council and for them to adopt them and use those to set budget priorities, staffing plans, how we're going to allocate staff to those to achieve those items, as well as refine our mission statement and what our priorities are going to be over the next 2 years. That is the time frame that was established. So look forward working with this group, with the staff, and then ultimately with the council on getting those adopted and in place and moving forward. So that is that. Another kind of recap, last Thursday, staff held a public forum for the newly released CAL FIRE fire hazard severity zones, the maps for the local response areas. We had approximately about 20 to 24 people attend, dropped in. Some of them got the information that was presented prior to the forum over at the community center. Others engaged staff. The paper was present. We made sure we got good coverage with the article. Should be out tomorrow. From that, we got some good comments that we're going to pass back to CAL FIRE regarding the comments that we received. We had some residents that were from the county that was present. So we took the opportunity to explain the difference between the state responsible areas and the local responsibility, and that's the new maps that came out that includes the city of Willits. From the next steps from there, we're going to have to work with CAL FIRE. The maps are going to need to be edited. We have approximately about 90 days from now. We did have 120 days from the time it was released back in February, and the clock is running. So we're going to be making some map revisions. We're going to do that in-house and then present those maps with an ordinance for the council to adopt. And once again, throughout that process, the information's on the city's website, the maps. We actually modified the maps to include parcel boundaries. So you can see where the boundaries are depicted on the maps as from CAL FIRE. So CAL FIRE produced the maps, not the city. And then we, staff was able to overlay the parcels, so you can actually track that. I'm not quite sure if we have it completely updated. We had to make some corrections to the maps, but they will be under the tab on our website for information. As this item moves forward through the staff review on maps, coordination with CAL FIRE, like I said, we'll be coming back to the City Council for adoption, and then the next steps in coordinating with CAL FIRE, potentially some building codes and some zoning land use provisions that will need to be modified at that time. So we did have a good amount of participation at the public forum. Good information was exchanged.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
So, Mr. City Manager, last meeting when we talked about this, I asked if CAL FIRE and our local fire department was going to be invited and attended. Did that happen?
We invited them. There was conflict of interest. Didn't happen. But they were involved. They were notified, and we're coordinating with as we move forward with their with the action.
you're coordinating, well, because you said city staff's going to continue working on this. And honestly, I hope I know the fire department is not city staff. I hope that they're included in
Yes, they are.
as many meetings as possible.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
Brian, was
Yes.
it a conflict of schedule, or you said a conflict of interest?
Yeah, so we sent out the invite, we told them what we were looking to accomplish, and I think there was another meeting, they had a
So it wasn't
prior.
a conflict of interest, it was a conflict of
But yeah, conflict of scheduling, that was it. But they knew what we were looking to do, they were supporting of it, and they basically said, as we move forward, please include them, and we said gladly.
Tony Madrigal.
Yes,
So,
you have to go up front, Tony.
sorry.
Tony Madrigal, President of the Board of Directors of the Little Lake Fire Department. Actually, we did have two people. We had
Okay.
from myself and the fire marshal, one of the fire marshals here. And actually, we printed quite a bit of the maps.
You did do that.
So we were involved. We came over and we did meet with the gentleman, and we actually did talk to him quite a bit.
Okay.
So just to let you know that we did.
I apologize, I was dropping in and out through it. I was just kind of doing a
Yeah,
head count on
the chief was up in Oregon taking a class,
Okay.
but he
Okay.
sent us
Thank you for attending.
to that.
I think the fire council also had a conflict. That was the schedule.
Yeah.
That's what I have for tonight.
Any public comment? Yes.
Tamara Alanis, Tuttle Lane. I just want to say thank you, City Manager Bender, for taking the comments and actually saying that you're going to go back to CAL FIRE with those comments and ask them for changes. I know that can be really challenging. As most of you know, I work in Brook Trails, and the process that we went through for the state responsibility areas was not so inclusive. So living in the city, I'm glad that you're going to take that opportunity to potentially get some changes and further the interests of the city on those maps along with CAL FIRE.
Anybody else? Yes.
Ragda Zakaria. I just have a question about the goal setting session. I was wondering what's the target date for all of it to be finalized and coincide with the current budget? And I was wondering if you did take in consideration getting rid of the duplication of efforts. I just want to know, when is it going to be finalized and published? So we know where are we heading in the next 2 years.
The goal, the game plan, or the goal for the goals is to present them to the council in one of the April meetings. Looks like realistically, it's probably going to be the second April meeting.
Okay.
So the goal here is to present, have the council verify what was expressed, their wishes, their intent, their vision. This is what we're trying to put down on paper as we move forward, is their vision. So we want them to verify and adopt it.
Is it possible to put on the website the tentative 6 goals you mentioned?
We can do that.
Please? Okay, thank you.
Any more comment?
He's got to come back on for me to be able to.
So logistics with PowerPoint coming up. I think that's what's being discussed.
Are we done with public comment? Okay, the next item is department recommendations, action items. The deployment of automated license plate readers, ALPR, by approving a 2-year contract with the Flock Group for $52,550 with an annual outlay of $23,500 for subsequent years. Presenting staff member is Michael Parrish, our interim chief of police. person on there. I think she can hear us.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Good evening. I do have a Zoom guest, and we're having a little bit of difficulty with that guest. But if they don't appear, I'm going to go for it anyways. So,
I believe.
Hello, can you all hear me?
Oh.
She can hear us. Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Good evening, thank you.
So Mayor and Council, tonight I'm proposing that the City Council approve a automated license plate reader system deployment for the city of Willits. And when I talk about automated license plate readers, I'm going to start calling those ALPRs, because you're not going to want to hear me for 20 minutes repeat automated license plate readers again and again. So ALPRs are the license plate readers. ALPR capture computer readable images of license plates of vehicles, allowing officers to compare plate numbers, license plate numbers, against those of stolen cars or wanted individuals in various crimes and databases. So these cameras are mounted wherever we plan to, and I'm going to share where they're going to go tonight. And they're fixed cameras, so these are not on patrol cars. These are at fixed locations on poles or whatever apparatuses we mount on, whatever it takes. So the information captured by ALPR, it can help determine whether a vehicle was at the scene of a crime. It can discover whether or not vehicles are associated with each other. In other words, there's a crime that keeps occurring or a similar crime, and the system notices that there's these two vehicles are always together for whatever reason, these crimes. So it's pretty cool stuff. It's very high-tech stuff. And law enforcement agencies can also choose to share our license plate reads with other law enforcement agencies. So I can share them with Mendocino Sheriff's Office, or I can share them with the city of Fort Bragg or Ukiah for investigations. So these cameras also integrate information from national and state crime databases for real-time alerts. So when I talk about a real-time alert of a vehicle in a state or federal database, for example, that would be a stolen car. So if somebody was driving a stolen car and they entered our city and that plate got read by one of the cameras, they would notify dispatch that this stolen car had just entered our city. And it's not just stolen cars. It could be also an amber alert. It could be, I don't know if you know what a silver alert is, it could be a silver alert. It could be at-risk missing person. So these ALPRs, they don't just solve crime, but they also, they're public safety enhancement. They help recover people that are missing, for example, or at risk. So locally, right now, the sheriff's office has flock safety cameras, these ALPRs. The city of Ukiah has them, and Fort Bragg. And so I'm proposing the flock safety vendor for the ALPRs. There are other vendors out there, but because in our county, law enforcement already has gone with flock safety, I need it to be compatible with those other agencies so we could share information. So I'm recommending to council that if we do a ALPR program, that it's flock safety and not a different one. So there's different ways, and I already spoke about this, but the ALPR's devices, they provide real-time alerts when a vehicle that is stolen or associated as a known suspected criminal is detected, again, notifying dispatch. They're investigative, so ALPR cameras can help determine whether and which vehicles were at the scene of a crime. So if there's a burglary, for example, in Willits at 3 a.m., our department, we can search camera reads that were going on about 3 a.m., which there's not going to be that many reads, right? And so we can narrow down a suspect vehicle, and it'll help us solve crime. And again, there's also the non-criminal investigations that I spoke of, Amber Alerts, Silver Alerts, at-risk missing people as well. So I want to talk about what ALPR does. I want to talk about what it doesn't do, okay? So it doesn't do facial recognition. So what these cameras are doing, as a car passes a camera, it takes a picture of the back of the car or truck. So it's capturing that license plate and it's capturing the color and make and basically, maybe not the model, but the type of vehicle, station wagon or whatever. That's all it's doing. It's not associated with a name. So when it reads a plate, it's just reading a plate. It doesn't know that the plate is John Doe or Jane Doe. It just simply reads and stores a plate so that we can investigate crimes and again find missing people or whatever the scenario is. Also, when I say it can't run a plate, so like a police officer, we can run a license plate, right? If we have a right and a need, we can run a license plate number. It will come back to John Doe. It will come back to an address. These ALPRs physically cannot do that. They don't have the functionality to do that. They're not associated with the DMV system. They simply photograph your plate in your car, and that's it. They can do nothing beyond that. And then when we share that information, we will only share that information with law enforcement. That information will not be shared with insurance companies or repo people or whatever it is. It's just law enforcement to law enforcement. And because California is a sanctuary state, we will only share this information with California law enforcement. We will not share this with federal law enforcement. So, for example, ICE would never receive this information or any other federal agency. And because other states, there's some states that aren't sanctuary states, right? So I'll call out Arizona, a pretty conservative state. It's not a sanctuary state. We would not share license plate reads with Arizona. Why? Because if we did, Arizona could then share that with whoever they want because they're not a sanctuary state. So these license plate reads would only stay in California and only law enforcement, only, just so you know. Also, we only retain the data for 30 days. So when the cameras read your plate, it captures it for 30 days. So it's your license plate, it's the description of the vehicle, and that's it. And then in 30 days it falls off. So it just keeps deleting. So it's not there. That data is not there for years. If there's that concern, it goes away. So you're probably wondering where the cameras are going to go, I would imagine. So I'm looking at gateways to the city. That's where I wanted to deploy the ALPRs. So one is Brown's Corner coming into town. So coming and going, right? So license plate reads coming into town and going out of town. And then on Highway 20, another gateway, cameras coming and going from there out to Fort Bragg and coming back from Fort Bragg on the 20. And then on Main Street, so North Main Street, like by Sherwood and the high school, license plates coming and going from that area. So those are the areas that I'm proposing to deploy the cameras. So the 20 is going to be a little tricky. I have to work with Caltrans on that. It's doable, and Caltrans is getting more and more used to their public right-of-way being utilized for these cameras because there's just more and more cities and jurisdictions are adding these. So it's getting easier to work with Caltrans. So we will have to get a permit from Caltrans to deploy the cameras, anything associated with the 20, but not North Main Street. And then the final placement of the cameras, I really don't want to disclose exactly where they're going. I don't want them to be target practice. But some of these, I literally don't know where they're going. So, because they're solar powered, so once once the vendor gets here with the cameras to place them, we're gonna have to look at the best locations to deploy these cameras. That are on poles, and they're solar powered. So I don't wanna put one under a tree and then the solar's not working. So that's why I'm just sharing the general areas of where they're gonna be placed. That's all that's about. So when our officers when we're looking into an investigation and we're looking at plates, we have to have a reason to look at plates. We can't just arbitrarily look at everybody's plates. It's just not legal. We have to have the right to do it and the need to do it for investigations, just so you're aware. There is I have a draft policy. It was put in the packet for council. It can be modified. I did put in the policy that the reads only last for 30 days and then they get deleted. But the policy calls out a lot of the things I talked about. The policy calls out, we don't share with federal law enforcement agencies. We are a sanctuary state. It calls out that officers have to have the right and need to look at license plate reads. They have to log in, so there's an audit trail of them logging in as well. So it's pretty transparent. And then there is a cost associated with this, of course. So the first 2 years, the total is $52,550 for the first 2 years of deployment. That includes the company coming in and setting up all the cameras and deploying them. And that also includes 2 years of subscription. So a year of subscription is $23,500. So council, for the first 2 years, that cost of $52,550, that includes 2 years of subscription as well. So there's not a cost beyond that. If we want to have the contract for 3 more years, we can lock in the price of $23,500 a year for 3 years after that, and that would be just the subscription. If we stored the plates longer, for like 60 days, the price of subscription goes up. And that's one of the reasons for 30 days is also to help keep the cost down for the deployment of the cameras. Beyond the report, I have some notes I wanted to share. So this enhances public safety. Again, it doesn't just solve crimes, it finds at-risk people. One of our dispatchers was retired out of Ukiah, Kelly Denham. We're fortunate to have her. When she was at Ukiah, they had flock, and they still have flock. When she was working, there was a little girl in a city park that got bit by a strange dog. And the guy that had the dog, he loaded up the dog in his white Subaru wagon, and he took off, and they didn't get the plate. And so the mom was having to take the kid to the ER to get checked, And then what comes up to mind is the rabies series of shots, right? Whether or not this kid has to go through those. And so using flock cameras without a license plate by vehicle description, they found the gentleman that was driving that car and had that dog, and he was able to provide them with rabies vaccinations and all that, and that child didn't have to go through all of that misery. So it's not all about solving crimes. This truly enhances public safety. And it's one of the big reasons I'm recommending it. This is a technology that I wish I had when I was a youngster cop. We didn't have things like this. This is so cool, I think. It could save on overtime cost because it will save on late work for investigations. That'll be huge. Again, you're with me, right? ALPR cannot run your plate. You cannot do that. If you're wondering, because everything falls off in 30 days, like, well, gee, chief, what if you have a suspect, a suspect, and it's going to fall off in 30 days? We would capture that data and put it in evidence.com and store that license plate read, just so you know. So we're not going to lose it, but it'll delete out of the system after 30 days. Oh, so these cameras are all in the public right of way, right? This is constitutional. We're not sharing anybody's data. They're in public view. We're talking about it in public right now. I'm mandated to do that by state law, California. I already went over the cost. There is a draft policy. Council, I did forget one thing to share with council. It's very important. The funding mechanism for this. So Fund 222 is asset forfeiture funds. We have the funds to pay for this for the first 2 years of the contract. I've been seeing how asset forfeiture money comes in. I'm confident that the final 3 years of subscription that we can fund that with asset forfeiture as well. So it would come out of the general fund, it would come out of asset forfeiture. And I know I said a lot. I'm looking for council support. I don't know if I should take questions yet, or maybe our friends on Zoom.
Do we have public comment on this? Sabrina, you're the first one I saw. Madge, you can go next.
Thank you, Chief. That was a lot of good information. I'm glad that you did know what the funding source was, because as he was speaking, I was asking myself, where are the funds coming from? And I know that we do have asset forfeiture funds, but like with any expenditure, when you're on a tight budget, I'm also wondering what from the asset forfeiture funds might we not be able to fund. So maybe some discussion on what we might be giving up that potentially, and then I'm questioning a little bit about whether or not we want to lock ourselves into a long-term with the 23,000 in future years. And then the last point I want to make is I know that in law enforcement there is a long wish list, and I'm just wondering, like, in general, what types of things are on the wish list and where this might fall. And you don't have to give me a running list. Let's say, you've got your top 10, for example, and this was your number 3 or your number 10 or your number 1. Just wanting to get a sense, because I don't know what law enforcement needs each day and officers are needed. But I do want to make sure that our tax dollars or city funds are funding at the best level possible to support public safety. Thank you.
Madge Strong, I also just had a question. If we find out, or the police are notified that somebody's fleeing from a crime down Ukiah or even Santa Rosa or whatever, but we don't know what time they might be coming up into Willits, does this allow you to identify any similar vehicle, because you're not going to want to have to go through hours and hours of looking at plates. I'm just wondering how that gets implemented if there's a suspected criminal heading into our city.
What was your answer, please?
Mayor,
ask about the time.
Yeah. I was taking notes, Mayor. I thought maybe I'd let everybody do their public comment and come up, but that's fine. So, good question on a known suspect vehicle. So, a vehicle can be flagged, right? In Madge's question. So, if Ukiah had a wanted vehicle and we had the plate number, you can enter it in the system. You can flag it in the system, that plate number. And when it came into our jurisdiction, it would notify dispatch. Good question. Fund 222, top things, I think for me right now, I looked at what is the number one for me personally as the chief right now, serving this community. For me, flock is number one, and other things are number two. Big priorities for the police department are our dispatch center is very antiquated, and that's going to be a lot of money. That's a priority. A wish list. My wish list is fully staffed police department, to be honest. That's my wish list. It's everybody's wish list. And then on the contract, so I can only speak for 5 years of contract. So that's what I'm recommending the council enter into with flock safety. It's a 5-year contract. What happens in 5 years? I don't know. We're revisiting either flock or we're revisiting the latest and greatest technology that's maybe better than flock. Yes, Mayor.
She asked, is it going to have a time on when the car went past this area? Yes or no?
Oh, a time? Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
Helen Sims. I'm assuming that in Willits and Ukiah and Fort Bragg, as mentioned, this is set up within city limits. So is what's happening to the area between the cities? Is there a need for coverage? Is there anything of concern there?
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes.
Good evening, Dr. Zakaria. Safety is of importance. My question for you, what triggers the call to check the place? Number two, are we using the same company that Ukiah is using? Maybe we can get a better price break. We should actually, if they're using Ukiah. And number three, does that target as, are we going to have cameras inside the city housing areas? No. Okay, so if a burglary happened on School Street, that's my street, how are you going to know? How are you going to see the plate? I'm just asking. And number four, is that going to be tied? Can you connect this with narcotics and sex trafficking events? Because it's a huge problem.
Thank you.
Yeah, so the cameras I speak of are going to be for our city. And yes, Fort Bragg and Ukiah, they do have them. The county does have some, Mendocino County Sheriff's Office does. I know there's one in Covelo. I'm not sure where the other ones are at. If they're going to be on Highway 101, that would be the CHP's jurisdiction. I don't know of any on Highway 101. So it's a good question, and there is a need, but that's all I can tell you. What triggers a license plate read? Any crime. If we have a crime, we don't know who did it. That triggers us to potentially look at the ALPR system. If we have a vehicle description, it's going to depend on the time of day. It'd be easier to search plates at 3 a.m. compared to 3 p.m., right? 3 p.m. there's going to be a lot of license plate reads going on. Your particular street, it doesn't cover your street. It covers the gateways of the city, right? So if somebody's living in our city and they're not leaving and they're committing crime on School Street, it's not going to be a license plate read. It could have a nexus to narcotic and sex trafficking. Could, yes. And I believe that was...
It's the same company.
Oh, thank you. We're all using the same company. There is no price break. If there was, I'd have been asking for it because I really want to do this, but good questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Jerry.
Just for some clarification here. When Chris Stewart was interim chief, he started this process in motion. He was the one who made the initial contact to the representative for flock safety. his tenure ran to a closure. He couldn't follow through. It was something that was identified and carried through. And when we were fortunate enough to land Mr. Parrish here as interim, it was something that was passed on to him for a follow-through. So it was something that was in the works, and Mr. Parrish here has the ability to finish this.
Thank you.
Chief, as part of the price, let's just say, for the sake of argument, we do the 2 with the option to 3, and during that period of time, one of the cameras breaks. Does that include the upkeep for that, or do we own them and we have to pay, kind of like buying a refrigerator, is included?
No, great question. It is part of the package. It's included. They're obligated to maintain the cameras as long as we're under contract, and that could be up to 5 years.
And after 5 years, do we own the cameras, or are they kind of a lease?
We would own the cameras, but we would still have to subscribe to them to
get some use.
And then if they start breaking and things like that, I think we're on our own on that.
But if we continue in that, let's say year 6 or 7, and we're under contract, the maintenance of those cameras would be included down the
Yes.
road? And so.
Chief.
Yeah, here we go. Here's our subject matter expert.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kristen McLeod. I'm a community engagement manager with Block Safety. I've been working with Chief. He's been putting together a very thoughtful proposal for you all. Thank you so much for your time and consideration tonight. I just wanted to add a little bit onto that question regarding the cameras and the ownership. So as long as you're under contract with Block, we own and maintain the hardware, and it's a subscription model, and we did that very intentionally so that cities would be saddled with hardware that is out of date. So we, again, as long as you're under contract, if there is an issue with the cameras, we proactively monitor the camera's health and make sure they're functioning and up to date. So in 5 years, if there is a better, stronger hardware, we will take care of that. We will upgrade as needed. So again, as long as you're under contract, we handle all of that, and we did that again very intentionally so that the city, the police, your IT, your public works can focus on their job, and then let us handle all of the maintenance and the data storage and the training, so that you all can focus on your already very busy city business. So just wanted to add a little clarifying point there. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Chief, thank you. And I'm certainly very supportive of this because it does enhance public safety tenfold. In your policy, however, on policy 426, and for the public information, they should know they can get a copy of your policies whenever they want of public information. However, your policy on this, the 426.3, is incomplete. It says that the administration on-duty supervisor shall be responsible for developing guidelines and procedures to comply with requirements. So might I assume that upon the arrival of this great new technology and the implementation, that's going to be corrected to where the policy is going to be brought towards the city council so we know what the policy is?
Well, I don't want to have I don't really want to bring it back to council if I don't have to. So my understanding, because I've done this before with the city of Cotati, if council approves ALPRs in general and agrees on the retention data to be kept for 30 days, I believe that's enough. This is customizable draft policy, because this policy also calls out, if you read it, it talks about, yeah, you have, and it also covers if we had license plate reader cameras in our cars, mobile, right? So I was waiting for, if I get it approved, I'm going to I'm going to customize the Lexpol policy to be correct. I'll remove the part of, the mobile license plate reads, and then you're talking about the administrative.
Right. So let me just make it easier for both of us. How about when it's ready to go on board? It says that the policies, the guidelines shall be developed. Basically, that's what this 426 says.
Okay.
When it's time, you don't have to bring it to council. Can you just let us know what the guidelines are?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I got something. I noticed that they're looking at using Fund 222, which is the asset forfeiture, but the actual resolution is silent on increasing appropriations for it. So we wouldn't be able to utilize that unless we adjust the wording on it to increase the appropriations so that we can utilize that funding. Right now, there's only about $11,000 appropriated in that fund, and we'll need to up it to be able to account for it. I'm not certain if it's 23 or 52. Do we appropriate it for the whole amount? Is that what's due?
It would be to start with, it would be the 52.
The 52. So we need to increase appropriations to 52,000 so that we can cover the cost of this contract.
But you're saying asset forfeiture doesn't have that?
It doesn't have the appropriations in budget. So we would need to.
But it has the funding?
It does have the funding.
So, city manager, is there anything that could be amended tonight for if council makes a motion to approve?
Yes, we have done this in the past, where if a motion is presented by the council to adopt the action item as submitted, there's an amendment to the recommendation to allow the finance director to make the necessary adjustment to the budget account.
He's coming up, you can stand up.
I had one more thing, Mayor. If there is a motion, I would like the council to include.
I can't hear you.
Mayor, if there's a motion, I would like whatever council member does make a motion, if there is one, I would like them to include that it's a 30-day retention policy in the motion. That way it's memorialized for the city of Willits.
Okay, Jerry?
Yeah, I guess I just kind of wanted to say that this technology is what's in place now. It's when I say tried and true, in that it's been used, or it's being used right now by a lot of our neighboring cities and cities in Sonoma County, cities in the Bay Area. And it works pretty good whenever there's a major incident. Even if something happens on School Street, if it's egregious enough and the agency puts it out that, hey, there was a shooting on School Street and one of the neighbors said it was a white Tahoe that left, and that information is put in the system, that goes down the road, and if there's a hit on it, then at least there's a possibility of catching somebody after the fact. I can just relate, maybe Tom remembers, but years ago there was somebody that set a bunch of fires in Fort Bragg, and I just happened to stop somebody and wrote them a lighting violation ticket. And I ended up having to go down to Oakland to talk with the feds because this individual basically rolled over on the person that hired them to set the fires. And in the old days, you had to wait for a lucky break like that, and now some of these crimes are solved using technology as opposed to just luck. And so, given the safeguards that are in place, I mean, again, if this is Arizona, it's kind of a free-for-all, but here in this state, it's pretty dialed in as far as retention, what we're looking to do with it. And I think the other thing that the elephant in the room is that when you have limited resources, not a big staff, and when you're looking to solve a crime, it's not like you're San Francisco, that maybe when they're shorthanded, they still have more cops than we'll ever see here. You know, that it gives us resources that we wouldn't have otherwise, and I think it would help augment the resources the department has right now, especially since we don't have a lot of cops. And I think a lot of the agencies up here went that way because they also lack officers, not just Willits, but a lot of the other agencies in our area need these resources for that. And we end up working with other agencies this way. And instead, I'm sure one of these days it'll be AI doing some of it too. But so I just kind of wanted to go on record on that I support that for this reason, that I think it's a way to help the police department. And that was one of the goals that previous council set. The current council is also into wanting to support public safety, and I think it's one, and it's coming out of asset forfeiture. It's not free money, but it's not directly impacting the general fund.
Do I hear a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve as recommended, and in the motion, the direction to Finance Director to supply the necessary, transfer the necessary funds, and also that as per the policy, there's a 30-day retention on the license plate, the intel, which is gathered by these units.
I'll second the motion.
It's been motion, and you have both of them down?
Yes.
Okay.
Councilmember Burton? Almond?
Aye.
Gonzalez?
Yes.
Alanese?
Yes.
Mayor Stransky?
Yes.
The next item is a presentation of Prospective RCHDC Haehl Creek Village Housing Project at 275 Margie Drive. The presenting staff member is Dusty Dooley.
The PowerPoint that's there.
Did we not do the other?
To you, and you can start there. I'll take up the down. Okay. I'll just give a brief 1 minute introduction.
You will?
Hand it over to you.
Okay, great, thanks.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Dusty Dooley, Community Development Director for City of Willits. Just real briefly, Dolores is loading a PowerPoint. We have Beth with RCH is going to give a PowerPoint presentation on you for you. You heard me at the goal setting session talk about the desire to promote housing development in our community and the economic benefits that can come from that. This represents one of those opportunities. RCH purchased a vacant property on the south end of Willits, up against the church down there, located on the east side of the highway, Main Street, and on west of the creek there. And this is an opportunity for the city to team up with RCH and seek some grant funding to support a housing development. And so I'll turn it over to Beth, who has I think this is your third time giving an update to council, but maybe the first time some of you have heard about this prospective development. Thank you.
Thank you, Dusty, and good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Beth Matsumoto. I'm the Director of Multifamily Development for Rural Communities Housing. My colleague Angie Figueroa, who's the Development Director, is also here with us. I want to thank city staff for coordinating this presentation. As Dusty mentioned, we were here back in September of 2023, to present our plan to develop affordable housing at 275 Margie Drive, and we received a warm welcome. So we're happy to be back. Since that time, we've improved our project site plan to add more housing, and we've identified a funding source that not only supports affordable housing development, but also offers capital funding for city infrastructure and transit. And it's great to hear that those two things, or those three things, affordable housing and infrastructure, two things, are part of your strategic planning and your goal setting session. So getting into the presentation.
Push the down button.
Down button. I am. Down button's not working. Can you advance it from your slide, from your station, and I'll just let you know?
Presentation.
Earlier today.
Dusty, you were playing around with it the other day, right?
Dusty broke it.
Yeah.
Okay, there we go. Thank you. So today we're going to talk a little bit about our organization, and we'll talk more about the Haehl Creek Village affordable housing community that we'd like to develop and the funding that we plan to bring in. And then we'll also take your questions. We hope this is kind of like an open dialogue. So Rural Communities Housing Development Corporation was established in 1975 to address local housing needs. We operate as a nonprofit public benefit corporation. We're dedicated to the acquisition, development, and management of affordable housing, and we're committed to serving rural Northern California communities. We're proud of our experience and our impact. We've developed over 700 homes. We manage over 1,500 for low-income households, and we partner with communities and local agencies to house and serve low and moderate income neighbors. Our work in Willits, we currently manage 12 units of affordable senior housing at Lenore Street Apartments. And like Dusty mentioned, we did purchase the vacant parcel in South Willits to develop into affordable housing. And we've been collaborating with the City of Willits and the Mendocino Transit Authority to explore different funding sources for the property. So this image shows a diagram or an aerial image of the site. We'd like to build on the red portion of the site. The site is 8 acres, and we're proposing to build on roughly 4 acres. And what we'd like to do is offer to the City of Willits the excess portion to be adjoined with city-owned land that's adjacent. And we think that that could offer some really good benefits to the city, potentially access to the Haehl Creek Trail on the other side of the creek, or other community identified benefits. So again, we'd like to build affordable housing, and the great thing is that the funding source that we've identified could bring in infrastructure money to help improve streets and walkways and also increase transit options. Another thing about the proposal is that to increase connectivity to the site, we're going to install a new transit stop at Margie Drive at the entrance to the affordable housing development. And we think that that's going to benefit not only the residents that are going to be living there, but also that South Willits portion of the city. So we're excited about that.
Stop on 101.
It would actually be on Margie Drive in city streets. Yeah. So again, we're looking to bring in Affordable Housing and Sustainable Communities funding, or ASIC, and that program is provided from the state's Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, which is an account that's established to receive cap and trade auction proceeds. And then we plan to leverage ASIC funding with LIHTC, or low-income housing tax credits, which gives investors a dollar-for-dollar reduction in their federal tax liability in exchange for providing funding to develop affordable housing. It's a great program, and it's the largest source of funding for in the nation for affordable housing. And in the current administration, we're learning that because of broad bipartisan support for housing credit provisions in tax legislation, we expect to see extension, if not expansion, of the tax credits for low-income and workforce housing. The funding project area is within a 2-mile radius of the project site at the middle. So there's lots of opportunities within that area, and those that have already been planned for and identified as priorities by the city. So one of the opportunities that we're most excited about is the potential to improve connectivity to the Rail with Trail project that offers access to regional trail system that's expected to generate new trail-oriented development and economic opportunities. Moving forward, so last year ASIC, or the funding program, awarded up to $50 million per project. So $35 million could go for the affordable housing development, and then $15 million could come in to help support city infrastructure and transit that could be run by the Mendocino Transit Authority. Let's see. So again, we plan to build 62 homes that will be affordable to working people earning low wages. A family of 4 earning no more than $54,240 on an annual basis would be able to afford to live there. So this not only will support individuals and families in your communities, but also employers who are struggling to grow because of the limited housing supply. So your city staff sees this project as an investment in the economic growth of Willits, and we do too. In the next slide, I'm going to provide some examples of project components that are in addition to the affordable housing development. So for infrastructure opportunities, they could be things like installation of a new or improved walkway, improved mobility and access for pedestrians, street crossing enhancements, installation of traffic calming measures, installation of new or improved pedestrian crossings or over crossings. For transit opportunities, we can bring in zero emission vehicles and charging infrastructure. We can bring in street furniture, benches, shade structures, and we can also develop or improve shelters or waiting areas at transit stations, and also transit passenger amenities like Wi-Fi access or digital on the buses. Program opportunities are also available to be funded, such as bicycle and pedestrian safety education programs, school crossing guard training programs, workforce development partnerships, and car share programs. So looking ahead, we're going to be holding a couple more workshops at the end of March. I think your packet might have the wrong date. We're going to hold our next community workshop on the 31st of March at 5:30 here in council chambers. And then we'll duplicate that meeting for folks who cannot attend that meeting on Zoom on April 12th, which is a Wednesday at noon. And then when we have gotten public input and heard your input in terms of identifying project components, infrastructure and transit components, then we'll bring those, the project components and agreements back to our governing boards, including the council, for approval in March or April, likely beginning of April. And then in May, we will submit our application. We expect to hear a funding award in August. And so we wanted to open it up for any questions that you may have. One question that might be interesting to think about is how has housing and transit access impacted your life and those you serve? And then do you have any feedback on how best to engage the Willits community to help shape this project? And I'll kind of leave those two questions with you, and I'll open it up for questions and answers.
Are they single-family residences?
It's going to be a multifamily housing development.
So it's not single-family residences?
If you consider single-family dwellings like a one structure for one family, no, it would be multifamily apartments.
It's going to be apartments?
Yes.
How many floors?
Likely 3 floors. And there is an elevation grade at that site, so it will come up to grade to about the 101.
Gary?
So you mentioned this administration. Are you talking about the state or the federal?
The federal.
Okay.
Sorry.
Anybody else up here?
Well, I think it's worth noting that this was proposed on that site 25 years ago.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
And the Harris Manor subdivision people were pretty clear that they didn't support a low-income housing thing next to their neighborhood. So just, and the council, and it was being funded with tax credits. It's going to be built, it was proposed by a builder out of Eureka. And,
thank you.
And it was voted down. It didn't get approved. Just the historical movement there.
Anybody else up here?
I just want to say, not a question, but those times I think have changed, and I think that housing's become a little harder to get by for people, and so I think even some of those residents down there would probably agree that, you know, there's a need for housing for our community, and a lot of our young people can't seem to get into houses, so.
But the corporation would own the houses and maintain them and be in charge of who's there and who's not? I mean, that's, people turn their applications to the nonprofit.
Yes.
And that's who makes the decision. And
yeah, we own and manage our properties.
so if there's a troublemaker down there, you would go through the process of booting them out.
Correct, yes.
Okay, thanks.
No? Any public comment?
Yes. John Kowalski.
No, I asked this one young lady first, please.
I didn't see you coming. Short.
Hey. Can't say that.
Thank you.
First, I want to speak as an individual, and as an individual, I'm in support of housing. I'm pretty excited about it. And then we know each other because I served on the Mendocino Transit Authority for the last 8 years, and the last 5 years I was the chair. And there's a strong transportation component to this. And I just wanted to share some of the perspective about the opportunities that Mendocino Transit Authority sought for the Willits community, conversations that we had. The Transit Authority has a pilot program that's starting up soon in Covelo, where we're going to be providing twice a week, or I shouldn't say we anymore because I'm not on there, but twice a week there'll be opportunities for people in Covelo to have transportation so that they can get to doctor's appointments, whether it be Ukiah and beyond. With this transportation component, before I left, we were exploring the idea of being able to start our pilot program for being able to increase services to Brick Trails. Currently, the Senior Center is able to provide those services, but Mendocino Transit Authority is excited that as a part of this, we would be able to use some of those funds to be able to help make that happen. And then we also had discussions about parking and being able to have a place where the community could ride share. So it sounds like there's plenty of space where you could, charge your vehicle, or you could park there and ride share. And then we even talked about e-bikes, being able to park them there, whether it was for the residents or the general public. So there's lots of other wonderful components to this particular project that will benefit all of us, whether you choose to live in those apartments or not. I think it'll be an asset to our community, and I'm excited about it and grateful. Thank you.
Okay, John.
Thank you. Excuse me, Supreme, sorry. Yeah, John Kavosnica. Do you have anything to do with all the apartments that popped up in Ukiah? All those low-income apartments that sprung up all over the place in Ukiah?
Do you know the address?
Well, you have apartments in
We have
Ukiah
apartments
that
in
you guys
Ukiah.
manage?
Yes.
Yeah, and how are those working out?
They're working out great.
Are they?
Yeah, we partner with behavioral health on a lot of those, and so for those apartments, we have wraparound supports to help keep individuals housed. It is a challenging population to house, but I think
It is a
we're doing
very
great job.
challenging population to house, and I see it being very problematic in the not too distant future when you fill them up with that demographic of people.
Excuse me, John. You guys are just talking to yourself, but the TV people can't hear what you guys are saying. So if you'll say
I apologize.
question and then she can answer it, please.
And also remember you're addressing the board, and then
Yes, sorry.
time, but then she can respond if maybe so chooses.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Anyways, you get the gist of my question. I see it being problematic in the future, having these high-density apartments in this area, like Mr. Burton mentioned. You have a real high-value house, and all of a sudden you have these high-density apartments next to your $600,000 or $700,000 home. I see it being problematic. So that's just my first knee-jerk about that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, can you answer that, please?
Well, we haven't seen any data that suggests that affordable housing decreases property values. As a management agency, we take pride in upkeep of our apartments, and we're audited every year by the state and by the folks, the tax credit allocation committee that comes in and makes sure that we have decent housing and that we're enforcing rules and ensuring that folks who should be living there are living there. So that's our job, and that's what we do.
Do you manage the Holly Street apartments?
No, I don't believe so. Doesn't sound, is that in Willits?
Jerry?
The particular apartments in Ukiah, those are a wraparound sort of, it was my understanding, those were kind of a behavioral health / you're providing housing, but there's, I think, embedded counselors. You're not proposing that for this project here. You're proposing this just be affordable housing. Is that correct?
Yeah, this would be more for large family type housing, which is a little bit different than our smaller units supportive housing.
Okay, yeah, I want to differentiate between.
Yeah.
So are they 3-bedroom, 2-bath kind of places, or?
Yes, so they would be a mix of 3, 2, and 1s. with one bed, one bath. We're also proposing site amenities that would be, or improvements for folks who are age appropriate, so for little ones and larger kids and even adults, gardens, we'd have laundry on site. These are $1 million apartment buildings that are just gorgeous, and they're offered at below market rents. And I think you saw that family of 4 household is earning $50,000, so that may be your maintenance worker at the hospital down the way, or your person in the grocery store. If you think about the jobs that those folks occupy, those are the people that we'll be serving.
Matthew.
Thank you for your presentation. You had asked earlier if there were some communities, if they had some ideas about who to reach out to. I would suggest reaching out to the school district.
Okay.
We work with a lot of those same people, people who are in multi-family homes or multiple families living in places who can't afford places to live. I know they would put you in contact with a lot of that.
Thank you.
As well as some of the other community organizations, perhaps like Nuestra Alianza, who works with a lot of the Spanish-speaking community, people who are immigrant communities. They might benefit from this type of homes. And if you wanted to reach out to them, that would be probably a good place to start, my suggestion.
Thank you very much.
Anybody else up here? Okay, community comment? Anybody from the community?
Hi, my name is Ed Beals. I'm a chef at the hospital, and I'm also a property owner here in town. I'd just like to give a brief statement about, I rent a room in my house, and just to make ends meet. Every time I put that room up for rent, I get at least 100 applicants for it. So there are people in this community that are looking for affordable housing. So I'd just like to make a little statement that whether it's her or somebody else, this town does need houses that are affordable for everybody.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes?
Good evening. I think in Willits, we're in a time where we need to stop saying this is going to impact my next door neighbor. We need to expand. Low-income housing is a huge issue, and it's time to be implemented without doing all those meetings and stuff. I mean, you have very knowledgeable organization. They know what they're doing. They're going to manage it. My only question is, you are going to be creating jobs. Have you considered building live and work where you have shops at the bottom where people can use them to create the jobs for themselves and live upstairs? Not all of them, maybe half of it, because that will help in creating a job within that same community. And it's time to give them 100% support. That's enough, sorry, I use that word too much, but it's time to get it done. That's it, done. We don't need 6 meetings. The minute they start building it and they're hiring it, is going to bring the whole community together. That's just my opinion, but I would think of the live and work concept.
Thank you. Let her answer you now.
Gosh, they're not technically built with physical space for like a maker space, but we would defer to if there were any rules on home occupation. But other than that, it's a traditional apartment building.
Jerry?
And I guess the reason for your meetings is not because we're delaying you. I'm assuming the reason for the meetings is part of the whole project requires community input. Is that correct?
It does, and we want to identify infrastructure, sidewalks, street improvements, things that really matter to folks and matters to your constituents. So we want to start that dialogue.
Thank you.
So do you intend to extend Bonnie Lane?
Bonnie Lane does come into our, so that is part of the property that we would like to have the city of Willits adjoin their adjacent city-owned land with, so that would be a city's choice, the city's choice.
But Bonnie Lane dead ends into that parcel right now?
Correct.
And do you intend to make that an entry point into the?
No, it would be Margie Drive, and what I'm saying is we would like to dedicate or transfer that portion of the land to the city of Willits for consideration to make this.
So it'll be a single entry and exit?
Yes, it would be a wraparound.
I just wanted to add one thing. We may, in working with the fire department and having discussions with the community, including reaching out, specifically to the Harris Manor subdivision, it may be determined with fire department recommendation that it may be wise to at least improve that connection for emergency services. So while it wouldn't be open for just regular traffic, it may be a benefit to improve it for emergency access.
That's a question you're going to get from the Harris Manor people that live out there. And I would encourage that they get well notified that this is in the queue.
Thank you.
Anybody else up here? Anybody? Yeah, John again?
Yes, please. Thank you. Excuse me. Is there any green space involved in this project that's going to be incorporated, like a park or stuff like that?
Yeah, I wish I could, can I go backwards? I can't go backwards. So there's part of the parcel, it's 8 acres, but we're only going to be developing 4 acres, and the excess portion we'd like to transfer to the city of Willits for improvement, potentially as a park or other city priorities.
Sorry, I was just trying to help you.
Thank you.
Is that due to slope and inability to build on it?
It has to
Next to
do,
the creek and stuff
a
like that?
little bit, yes. It also has to do with the density of the funding source that we're seeking. So you can see the north portion would be dedicated potentially for park or open space or something that the community identifies as a priority.
Anybody else out?
Robin.
Yes, Robin.
Gosh.
I want to thank you Robin Layler. Thank you for such a great presentation. I've been following this for a long time. A lot of low-income people I know had to move to Ukiah because they could only get housing there. They come back up and visit and go, I miss my people in Willits. I was kind of unsure. It looks like it's going to be along Highway 101. What's the straight line?
I think it's called Highway 20 now.
Highway 20?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's not called 101.
That's right, because it doesn't, okay, turn in, okay. My concern was, were people going to have to walk along 101 or 20 where there's no sidewalks and stuff? And I was really happy to hear tonight something new, that it will connect to the Great Redwood Trail, which is a bicycle and pedestrian path that would put people right in downtown. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Robin. Do you have anything to answer to that?
Well, the entrance would be a Margie Drive. So if you can see Margie Drive kind of dead ends, we would extend that into, and the bus stop would be in the entrance off of Margie Drive. So folks wouldn't really be, diverted to go on to Highway 20. They would use that entranceway. I think that's it.
Thank you.
And it's certainly going to take a bridge if you want to get over to the Haehl Creek. And that's a multi-million-dollar, you could build it a whole lot less, but.
Jerry?
And just to confirm that this is not going to be merged with our local trail program. That's something that you're just proposing. It's a possibility, but this project is independent of our trail program.
Yes, we would like to provide connectivity, but yes, independent.
But it's got no connection.
No.
I currently have a conflict with our trail program.
Oh, got it.
And so I would not be able to vote on this if.
Oh, no. I don't think so. Right.
Yeah, there's no improvements related to trails are part of this project.
Thanks, Beth. Thank you very much.
Beth, could I have you leave a card with
Yes,
Dolores,
for
and
sure.
then that way I can talk with you
Great.
later. But thank you.
Thank you very much.
Any other comments from the audience? Anybody up here again? How about a motion?
No, it's a no action.
It's a no action. It's presentation.
I wish that we would have. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Okay, the next item is an informational discussion on updating regulations for mobile vendors, including permitting requirements, local restrictions, and operational standards. Presenting staff member is Sweta. Can you?
Yeah, that's okay. Good evening, everyone. I'm Shweta. I'm the new Senior City Planner. And today I'm going to be presenting the mobile vendor ordinance here. So the goal is to provide the City Council with information and receive policy direction regarding mobile vendor operation, including permitting, local restrictions, and operational standards. Over the recent years, there has been increase in inquiries about mobile food vendors with questions about regulations for operations on both private property and within public right-of-way.
You need to roll the thing.
Oh.
Click outside of the, now roll the roller.
Yeah.
There you go.
Sorry. So, coming to existing rules and regulations, according to the Willits Municipal Code section 5.828, the mobile vendors are prohibit selling merchandise from stationary or portable stands or vehicles on main and commercial streets or any of the side streets within one block, and it does not prohibit operations on adjacent private properties. And Willits Municipal Code section 17.66 allows peddlers, hawkers in all zoning districts with a planning director approval, and also limits the vendors to 4 non-consecutive 7-day periods per year. But again, Willits Municipal Code section 17.82 requires mobile vendors to obtain a zoning permit unless a conditional use permit or a variance or site plan review permit is issued. In 2014, mobile vendor food discussions took place, and there were some recommendations made like location restrictions where no vendors within 100 feet of Main Street, West Commercial Streets, or East Commercial Streets of the railroad track were allowed, and vendors were only allowed in commercial and industrial zones or as a part of permitted special events. Vendors were also not allowed to operate within 100 feet of a city park during special events, and temporary exceptions were for vendors supporting construction projects up to 90 days. And although these recommendations were made, no formal changes were adopted. So that is a brief summary of what happened previously.
Click outside of the box and now use the roller.
Thank you. Yeah, just a brief summary on what mobile vendors is. An overview. A mobile vendor refers to any business or individual operating from a temporary or mobile structure, which includes food trucks, carts, trailers, offering goods or services. The benefits of mobile vendors can be, it can support local economic development, provide low-cost business opportunities and diverse dining options, attract a lot of food traffic, and support surrounding businesses. Some of the challenges that could arise could be the need to balance vendor operations with the impact on brick and mortar businesses and also ensures public safety. Some of the location and zoning restrictions, according to California regulations, are mobile vendors must follow local zoning law, which may restrict vendors to commercial or mixed-use zones. The distance requirements can be set by the local governments and enforce a minimum distance from businesses selling similar goods. Public right-of-way restrictions could be vendors must ensure that they do not block pedestrian or vehicular traffic. State and fire safety codes state that vendor must comply with fire safety and equipment regulations. Operating hours, local regulations may restrict when the vendor can and cannot operate. Some of the permitting requirements for mobile vendors is to operate legally in California, mobile vendors must obtain key permit license. Food vendors need a mobile food facility permit from the county health department to comply with the California Retail Food Code, Cal Code. A business license is required from the city or the county along with seller's permit from California Department of State Tax and Fee Administration for taxable goods. Food vendors must also secure Mendocino County health permits. Some jurisdictions require a certificate of insurance for liability coverages. Vendors may also selling alcohol need an alcohol and beverage license from California ABC. Those using propane, open flames, or cooking equipment must follow the California Fire Code regulations. Special event permits may also be needed for festivals or fairs. Additionally, vendors must comply with the local zoning laws to operate in designated areas legally. To follow this, we had a community-wide survey that we put out on Facebook, and we had an increase of support towards mobile vendors. 78.13% of respondents were interested in mobile vendors, while only a small fraction were not interested. So we went ahead and conducted a stakeholder engagement with all the brick and mortar businesses. On 28th January 2025, staff held a stakeholder engagement meeting with 10 local business owners to gather feedback on mobile vending regulations. Leading up to the meeting, the staff made an effort to engage local business owners by visiting approximately 25 retail stores and restaurants throughout the city and collecting their feedback directly. Electronic invites were sent via mail to local businesses, inviting them to participate in this stakeholder engagement meeting. With a follow-up reminders and outreach efforts were conducting leading up to this event. The event aimed to gather feedback from local businesses and owners on regulations surrounding mobile vendors in Willits. Topics included location restrictions, permit fees, and vendor impacts on local businesses. City staff also reached out to the local businesses through in-person visits, and electronic invitations were also sent. The 10 local businesses that participated showed support towards fair practices towards mobile vending regulations. And some of the key points that were discussed were location restrictions, where brick and mortar businesses requested more flexibility on location restrictions, especially near main and commercial streets, balancing safety with economic opportunity. Permit fees and processes, both vendors and business owners sought an affordable and simple permit process, emphasizing the need for fair and clear guidelines. There was also a consensus on enforcing health and safety standards, particularly for food vehicles, with attention to waste disposal and hygiene. Concerns were about vendor placements near busy areas was raised, recommending minimum distance requirements from intersections and crosswalk. Support was expressed by allowing mobile vendors at special events and construction sites, benefiting both vendors and local businesses. There was a feedback on the 2014 recommendations from the businesses that attended the meeting. Participants supported the 2014 Revitalization and Economic Development Committee's recommendations, such as restricting mobile vendors from operating on main and commercial streets and during special events only. So we would like to get some key policy direction from the council and from the public as well on how the city can support diverse business models while ensuring fair competition, what guidelines should be addressed while for safe, healthy and operational concerns, and where should the mobile vendors be allowed to operate, and the durations of operation and the types of sales.
You ready?
Yeah.
Jerry?
Jim sent us out a copy of a memorandum for the city of San Diego from the city attorney. And my read on this was that looking at our ordinance and looking at what current law is, that we obviously need to revise our ordinance. Is that correct?
That's right.
And that some of the things we took for granted before, and I think may have been last year, Marcy, that we had somebody set across the street from Frontier Days, and in the past we had restrictions on where, when, and that those rules may have changed now, and mobile vendors may have more rights under current law that conflicts with our ordinance, and so therefore the state trumps our local ordinance. Is that correct, Jim?
Right, the laws change, it's decriminalized.
So the ability we had before to kind of restrict certain things is kind of gone away, or at least been diminished, and unless we could show from reading this memo that there's a clear safety issue or a clear health and safety issue or traffic safety issue or something like that, it becomes a little more narrow as far as what we can prohibit. Is that correct?
That's right.
So I think that as much as I want to support our local businesses, we also have to kind of comply with the law, is the way I read it, and finding that balance between supporting our brick and mortar businesses, but also there obviously is an interest in mobile vendors. I think I got a letter, I don't know if the other council members did earlier, from somebody who said they couldn't attend, and that they wanted us to look at this. And I think it's one where, obviously it's not on for approval or anything, but maybe to gauge that I think we need to explore this more and at least get our ordinance in line with what the state regs are, and also take that input from our local brick and mortar folks to find that happy medium. That's where I'm at with this.
That's
yes.
So I see at least 3 restaurant owners in the audience there. And I'll take one, for example, I'll take Jill, Blues Caboose. And with this new law and so forth, would a mobile vendor be able to park in front of the Loose Caboose and sell on a narrow street like that?
Yes.
I'm asking our attorney.
There can be, the city can regulate the location of sidewalk vendors as well as food trucks on the streets according to criteria based upon public health, safety, and welfare. You can have time, place, and manner restrictions. If being on the sidewalk in front of the Loose Caboose or within 100 feet of the Loose Caboose caused a traffic or parking or sidewalk congestion safety issue, that could be regulated. What we don't want to do, I think, is have an ordinance that recites an intention and desire of the city council to protect existing brick and mortar businesses from economic competition. And in support of that goal, we are going to ban them from being within, say, 100 feet of any restaurant entrance. What we do want to have instead is an ordinance that gives the city council the right to determine the location based upon the exercise of the city's police power, and that means public safety, public health, and welfare. So, for example, the city council might conclude that having 3 or 4 food trucks on Main Street in the center of town could cause real parking problems, traffic congestion, interfering with bicycle lanes, causing crowds of people to be on the sidewalk, and and interfering with pedestrian access, causing congestion. And that would be a legitimate reason for saying, you know what, these really should be down by Rec Road Park or somewhere else where also there are restroom facilities, running water for hygiene, trash receptacles, tables for people to sit down and eat, but there are better locations that serve the health, safety, and welfare of this community where these trucks should be located, as opposed to saying we're going to protect our existing businesses. That would be something that would be challenged. There's a California appellate court decision that came down in 1979. It's called People versus a la carte catering. And in that case, there was an ordinance that prohibited food trucks from being 100 feet from the entrance of a restaurant. And a catering truck, in defiance of that ordinance, continued to park right in front of the restaurant. And the restaurant owner complained, and the city got after the caterer and started issuing citation after citation, which were not paid. And it was, anyway, there became a court challenge over this, and the caterer took the position that this was a naked restraint of trade. This is a violation of due process and equal protection. We have the city council favoring the brick and mortar over my food truck operation, and the court concluded that, yep, that's right. That's not a legitimate exercise. That's not a legitimate government purpose. And instead, you're limited to establishing locations based upon the criteria of health, safety, and welfare. And so you can accomplish the same thing. You can determine a location that you like, that you think is the most appropriate place for these trucks to operate, that is away from Main Street and away from the restaurants, without just stating a purpose of trying to favor them.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Yes.
Okay, well, I just wanted to thank you, Mrs. Venatore-Polly. Yes. For your presentation. I just wanted to kind of talk about the fact that, there is kind of an assumed kind of dichotomy, like, it's brick and mortar and it's vendors. But, according to what you shared in the stakeholders meeting that was just pretty recently, I don't see a lot of conflict in there. I think it says here that the attendees concluded that they shared commitment to crafting the correct type of regulations that would establish, that would support both businesses and mobile vendors. I was hoping that you could probably maybe scroll back to the beginning, because you had shared with us the previous council's suggestions. There we are. That's close enough. Because I feel like these previous council directions are very close to what I would recommend at this time, as far as how to go forward and how to write the ordinances that we're going to need to correct. Of course, we're going to have to adjust them for the current law, and of course, we can't write them in a way that is discriminatory against these businesses. But I feel like a lot of these particular specifications, 100 feet away from Main Street, we're trying to protect the downtown area. We're not saying they can't exist, but we're saying there's time and places that are the right places and times to do that. We're certainly not excluding them. We want to participate in events. I think this gray square, the dark square here, is a good place to start in terms of getting closer to giving us an ordinance in which we can vote yes or no on, or maybe tweak a little bit. But we're talking broad strokes here, and I'm hoping to avoid a long, multiple-hour philosophical discussion about what's proper for our economy. I think we've had a lot of voices being heard here. I want to hear from the public here today. But in general, I would say that the previous council's directions, as cited here, is a good place to start with all of those. So thank you for your time.
So the council, is our current ordinance legal?
I think it needs to be modified.
Is that a yes? I'm sorry. Is that a yes or no?
I'm sorry.
Okay.
It's probably outdated, right?
It's not. It's inconsistent with Senate Bill 948, the sidewalk vending law.
Any other questions from up here? Dusty, you both are going to answer the questions if you need help. Okay. Anybody from the community that needs public communications? Yes. Sabrina?
Yeah, I was on the former mobile vending committee along with Councilmember Strong. I have a couple questions. Sorry. One of the questions I have is going forward with potential changes in the ordinance. We had discussed previously about the buffer on Commercial Street and events. And I'm wondering, since we had the last mobile vending committee meeting, I had thought at the time, and there weren't many people in town, that were having spaces where small micro businesses had the opportunity and space to sell their wares. And for example, at the Whistle Stop, I provide on-site space for vendors to come. They don't have a vehicle, but they do set up a table and a tent on my property, and I provide the space. I designate the time. It's not a daily situation. I have the restroom facilities, and I'm wondering if that's something that you're going to be proposing. There would be language in there to cover that or not. So that's a question that I had. Thank you.
Looking at Mary, is there an expectation to answer that?
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I just want to take my cue from you, Mayor. Yeah, I mean, we plan to have, some exemptions in there for special events, sort of unique situations, sure.
Will there be a permit? Is that going to be a permittable thing? Or?
Yeah, so the thought right now is to review and issue permits through the zoning permit process. It's an administrative process. I think the current zoning permit fee is $100.
Anybody else from the public? Yeah, go ahead.
We passed stage one, the obstacle course.
Yeah. Hello, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council, City Manager, and the City Attorney. My name is Ed Beals, and I'm a chef and professional cook. I graduated from La Cordon Bleu International in Portland, Oregon in 2004. I've been a professional cook and been making my living ever since. And I'd just like to add my 2 cents as, I guess, a kind of self-appointed expert on the food truck situation. I do have several friends that operate food trucks in this area, in Laytonville and other towns throughout California. And I'm having a hard time public speaking today. But
you're doing fine, Ed.
Let me just go over my little bullet points here for your consideration. Food trucks are one of the most accessible and budget-friendly avenues to starting and maintaining a food business. As the council might be aware, the food industry is very, very hard to get into, and it's very, very hard to maintain. The profit margins are really slim. And it's hard to invest that amount of money in something you're not sure if it's going to work out. So food trucks are a good way for chefs and entrepreneurs to prove themselves to investors and explore proof of concept for later expansion into more expensive traditional brick and mortar restaurants. Food trucks will be a healthier and better for the local economy than some of the fast food corporations that are also allowed to set up in town. They take money from this town and kind of divest it from our local community and bring it to McDonald's and formerly Jack in the Box, other places. And I, for one, would like to see more of the local food business going to local entrepreneurs. And food trucks are a good avenue for starting and maintaining local businesses for money to stay in the community. Back to the first page. Young people and working people on the go will benefit from accessibility of mobile catering businesses. Just like fast food, if you don't have time to sit down at a restaurant, you might be able to pop by one of the food trucks in town if there were such a place. One of my favorite taco spots, I have to go down by the dump to get my favorite tacos. And I don't think that's very fair. Those are really good tacos. They're really awesome. And those people work really hard. I know she's got a deep fryer running in her food truck to make her own tortilla chips during the heat of the summer. So they put in the work. New fresh food ideas will foster and promote a thriving, walkable downtown and areas to hang out, third spaces and so forth. One of the places I've considered particularly good for food trucks would be the little vacant lot across the street from the Van Hotel. I know that you're already talking about not having food on Main Street, but there'd be something we could fill that open area with, and it probably wouldn't cause any conflict with parking, and it would bring more people, I think, into the downtown area.
Private property.
Mr. Beals?
Oh, it is, okay. Oh, I thought it was like, okay.
Mr. Beals,
Well-
your time is up, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate you listening to me.
Thank you, Ed.
Thank you very much.
And you're a good public speaker.
Oh, thanks.
Yes, Tony?
Tony Madigal. I have a business here locally, and we've been talking about this for, I don't know, 20 years. I think Bruce was on the city council. I think the one block from Main Street, one block from Commercial Street is a good thing. You know, us as a brick and mortar, we have to meet ADA. We have to pay a grease trap permit. We have to have it pumped out every month. So there's a lot of fixed expenses that also has to be brought into the mobile vendors, and not just when I'm talking about mobile vendors. It's not just food vendors, but also selling T-shirts, selling jewelry, whatever it is. It affects a lot of the businesses. And I understand what you were saying is you can't keep somebody out to try to keep the brick and mortar places going. But I think we have to have a level playing field. Where's the mobile vendors going to dump their tanks? Are they going to? Do they have to have a grease trap, or are they just going to dump it in the local sewer? The city attorney was saying, well, maybe over there by the city park, and there's bathrooms there, and there's a place to be there. Well, we wish as a brick and mortar that we have the opportunity for the city to provide a restrooms and a place for people to eat. So as long as we have a level playing field between the businesses that are downtown to the mobile food vendors, I don't think there's a problem with that. But again, we have a lot of expenses. We have to meet a lot of things. I mean, there's a lot of buildings here in town that you have to have parking, otherwise you can't rent them. So now you're going to have a mobile vendor set up. Where's their parking at?
I get it.
So, anyways, that's I just wanted to put in my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tony.
I'm Jill Persico. I own the Loose Caboose Cafe, and kind of ditto everything Tony said, but it's just, I'm not good at this either, so be patient with me. The fact that I've been here for 36 years. I've served the community. My staff, my daughter's in the audience, and she's the up-and-coming boss of the Loose Caboose. But we also have to remember that we've paid, brought taxes to the city taxes for 36 years. And we employ all local residents that pay their taxes, or they put taxes back into the city. They also live here, eat here, shop here. So they're giving back to the community as well. And it's just been very difficult, having faced a lot of obstacles in the past 35 years. You know, you face an obstacle and you conquer it and you go on. And it just is getting harder and harder. And I just want to continue with my support and my love for my community for many more years. And as Tony said, I think the main thing is just being on a level playing field so that we share the responsibility and the burdens of what a business has to shoulder. And so I think that's probably what I'm feeling in my heart right now. And I'm just hoping that we can find that level playing field.
We all do.
Thank you, Joe. Any other community comments? Watch out for this one.
Tamara Allen, East Tuttle Lane. I have no skin in this game except I have friends that run businesses. Can you guys consider, when you're talking about the ordinance, prohibiting it from one-way streets? Especially, you know, if you think about the way the one-way streets are in our town, it's really a natural flow of the transportation through downtown. And I just do see, and I just see that potentially could be a safety issue. And I haven't really heard anything discussed about that. And that occurred to me. So maybe if we could make sure that we're not having trucks set up on a one-way street, if you could consider that, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Alanis.
I'm assuming
Anybody else from the community?
I'm assuming we're not going to have a committee or a city department that's going to get together to try to develop something. I'm sure between the League of Cities and Ukiah and Fort Bragg, somebody has almost a perfect ordinance out there that we can look at. I just don't want to spend a whole bunch of city time of coming up with something where we could call someone that we know and network and get it emailed to us and say, what about this one?
Yeah, if I may, so yeah, absolutely, that's the strategy. We've looked at other ordinance, Suida has, and certainly based on the direction we hear from council, we'll look to those ordinances and customize it to the needs. As far as efficiency or fast tracking or limiting the amount of staff time, if we could get some clear direction from council on some of the questions that we brought up. Certainly, we heard there was some interest in following the direction that the council previously provided in 2014. So that's something that we can follow and then continue to tweak from there. But there's questions on, location restrictions, hour restrictions. Do we want to allow for both, food trucks and other types of vending like retail? Do we want it to be limited to self-contained vehicles, or do we want people to have the ability to do open air vending? And again, I want to distinguish, there's the sidewalk ordinance where the state has really decriminalized or limited local authority to regulate. In front of Lou's Caboose, the sidewalk's probably too narrow, where if somebody set up, they're not going to maintain ADA access, and so that's a situation where that probably wouldn't be allowed. But when it comes to mobile vending, that's not subject to the sidewalk act, and there is some more discretion on our part. So to the extent we can, get some directions on those key policy points, where we're certainly ready to craft language and bring it back for council's consideration.
Wouldn't the grants pass Supreme Court decision get involved in that?
Are we referencing grants pass? Sorry.
I think you, Councilmember Burton, may be referring to the constitutional tests of camping, public camping.
On public streets.
In Idaho.
No, it's on grants pass. Oregon.
Oregon.
Well, that's why I said Grants Pass. I mean, I guess I assumed Oregon.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the other complication that hasn't been brought up yet on this issue is the farmers market vendors that are selling prepared food. And that issue is risen to the surface in other North Bay communities, and it is again giving a preferential treatment to a mobile vendor to sell in a prime location on a prime time in the downtown area. So just to complicate it just a little bit more, I mentioned that,
Well, Dusty, my reaction is if we have any parts of our current city ordinance that aren't legal, it doesn't take a rocket scientist for us to say, let's try to fix those as soon as possible. And then, whether the mayor wants to maybe appoint an ad hoc, you don't want the five of us trying to come up at a public meeting, coming up with an ordinance, because we'll be here till July, and, we won't have it done. So maybe something like that it would be a good way to proceed.
Imitation is flattery.
Dusty, I'm also wondering if you want to have two separate ordinances, a separate one for trucks and a separate one for...
Well, we're certainly going to have a separate one for sidewalk vending and then a separate one for mobile vendors. And if we're going to allow both vending of retail items as well as mobile food trucks, we could probably combine that into one ordinance, but to be determined.
And I guess I want to just clarify that we're going to allow, I think we're kind of in a position where the state has kind of tied our hands, that we have to come up with safety. It's going to have to be based on a safety issue or something like, narrow street traffic, again, safety, right? I mean, we can't disallow it because this is by right now. Is that correct?
Yeah. So we have a city attorney, and I'm certainly going to bend to his direction. I will note that other jurisdictions have been successful in establishing buffers from other brick and mortar businesses within their ordinance. They've established areas within cities where they don't allow for mobile vending. They've made exceptions for special events. So where I would say with the sidewalk vending, they very, very much are strict about it and have language in there that says you cannot create regulations based on economic considerations. So I guess what I'm saying is it's how you get there is important probably, but other jurisdictions have gotten to where they've been able to regulate at that level.
For the public, It's not like, hey, we magically said we're allowing this by virtue of the council today. That some of this has already happened around us, and that I guess that cart is sailed, or that ship has sailed already, and the state's kind of basically already made some decisions for us. Is that correct?
Especially with the sidewalk vending, but you have a more of an open field with the mobile vending end of things. Restricting it upon streets, restricting locations, basing it to certain zonings within the city, limiting the number of mobile vendors that can occupy a single property, again, keeping them out of certain areas of the city. Many other jurisdictions have been successful in creating that level of restrictions in their city. Anyways, I could.
And you mentioned special events, or like in the case of Frontier Days, where there's a theme involved with that, and you kind of want to protect that because it's part of its own thing. And I would want it, whatever we do, crafted in such a way that is legal and also honors, something that's happening. I mean, I would hate for. Somebody selling cowboy Godzillas or something down there, and that's not their purview. I'm just using that as an example.
Marcy's going to probably lean in and give me a number here in a minute, but even with the sidewalk vending law, it does allow a city to create a buffer around those special events. and disallow sidewalk vending that
Because
would
I would
otherwise be
like, as part of any
allowed.
ordinance, that we memorialize that so that when, if they call up and say, hey, there's somebody just set up shop with blah, 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 it would be there. So
That, you brought that up, Jerry, and it was not permitted. I dealt with the health department on that last year. She was not.
We can't hear you, please. You need to come up here, please. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Marcy. I'm with Willits Frontier Days. Yes, it was a vendor across the street. She was not supposed to be there. The health department did not give them a permit for that. So he did talk to her. Hopefully we don't have that problem again this year. The city has always supported Frontier Days for a 2-week grace period. That's when Frontier Days makes their money to fund everything throughout the year and be able to give back to our community. So if we had everybody line up on that street for what we are putting out for promotion, why would anybody be inside the rodeo grounds paying to be there? They just sit outside of Frontier Days and do it. So that if we,
Well, I guess that's what I say. I would rather whatever ordinance we do that memorializes not just Frontier Days, but any, if it's a special event, like the car show for somebody just to set up. That way, whatever the event is, that if we have that ability, I would like that memorialized in some sort of ordinance.
Yes, Bruce.
Dusty, I assume that's covered by a daily peddler's license now when people have something set up, a mobile thing set up?
For us at the Willits level, it's a business license and a zoning permit. Unless it's part of a temporary event already. They still have to have a business.
I'm not talking about special events. Like somebody just wanted to pursue their entrepreneurial spirit.
Yeah, they come in with us, they get a business license and then a zoning permit, and then, depending on what they're doing, potentially permits from environmental health, et cetera.
So, my question, I guess, really is that if you look at the property, the assets of a brick and mortar business, and they're talking about their ADA, they're talking about heating and cooling, and they're talking about all the sewer system and all that. It would seem like, in fairness, you would proportionately charge somebody that was going to come in and do a competitive enterprise without the competitive costs, that you would proportionally determine what those costs were and charge them accordingly. It could be a vehicle to try and apply some fairness to the equation.
Can I just reiterate Councilman Almond's suggestion that we create an ad hoc out of it so we can talk more details about going to the nitty gritty, because we got to talk about which streets. We need to talk about naming hours. We all know hours, but what hours, which streets, and some of these details can be worked out. And I think that might be a better place to do that, is for a couple of us to meet with planning to work with the details, and then we'll bring it back to everybody else to vote on. But to kind of kick around all these kind of ideas, big ideas, 5 people deep. We're going to be here long.
Sounded like there was one before. Right. Did it conclude its efforts, Brian, or did it just perpetual?
It predates me, so basically what you saw on that slide was where it was left off.
Oh, I thought I heard several audience members saying that they participated in that.
They did, but
it predates.
Yes.
Well, it postdated me.
Okay. So I think if I could just add some clarity to the discussion here. Community development at the end of the presentation is asking for some clarity on some specific points that they can build into proposed ordinance as hard points. If we can give some guidance now, or if you want to form it ad hoc and then work directly with community development, I think those are the 2 options that are on the table that gets us going forward.
Mr. Mayor, I'll be on the ad hoc.
Okay, that would be you.
Yes.
Okay, what do we want? We have two of the councilmen said that they would like to be on an ad hoc with you, Dusty, and
We'll work out times and meet and make it happen.
okay,
And we'll be in touch with the interested parties.
is that
Always
okay?
good to go to your restaurant.
And ad hocs will be open to the public.
Of course, absolutely.
So, join in the process.
Thank you.
Move along, Larry.
Thank you. Okay, next one, Dolores.
The next item is.
Thank you, young lady.
City Council announcements and communications reports.
Try that one.
Manitowoc Wallet,
The next,
called Essential.
the next item is City Council announcements, communications, and reports.
Bruce, you have anything?
Maybe, let's see what else comes up.
I attended, in the last week, I've attended two museum meetings, one for the Friends of the Museum and the other the monthly museum. Museum is looking for volunteers. If anybody doesn't have enough things on their plate right now, the museum is opening up. The county has basically transferred the museum operations to the Friends of the Museum. So if you have 2 hours a week where you can sit in the gift shop, become a friend of the museum. And it's actually taken off quite well financially, and things are going well. I would like to speak of a possible agenda item. At our goal-setting meeting, obviously, as the city manager said, that public communication is a goal of this, of improving public communication is good. And I'm just going to be very direct on this. I know that the city manager has the legal authority to sign some contracts without the city council's knowledge, and those contracts are never brought towards the city council. And we do not know where the city is right now. We're waiting for the past two fiscal year audits, and I would like to have an agenda item on next meeting's agenda, where we're going to be able to possibly have an action item of amending the city policy, city code for when the city manager does approve contracts, and some of these contracts are up to $60,000, there would be, with rare exception, there could be some exceptions to this for investigations and things like that. But there's really no need that any information of the fiscal expenditures of the city the city council is not being informed of. And I feel very frustrated. I brought this up in private twice, 3 times, and I feel like either I'm being ignored or there's a specific reason why this is not being brought up. So I'm asking the other city council members to consider joining me with just another voice of approval to have the city manager's contracts that are signed by the city manager be brought towards the city council. I don't want to know all the details. I just want to know how much money we're spending. It's that simple.
Tom, I have a concern that there is 2 years of outstanding of financials in arrears, and I think I don't know how I'm supposed to make decisions about spending in the community when I don't know what we have.
Yeah.
I think a hiring freeze that should include a discussion whether we need to institute a hiring freeze until we get caught up on our financial, so we know our financial condition. So I would just not saying no to that. I'm just saying that I think overall, as we trying to go forward and we don't have a current balances in our enterprise funds. We don't have current, other than the budget that was created 2 years ago. Maybe you all have more comfort in it, but I really haven't seen anything that gives me the security that we're making decisions with resources that we have or not. So I think it's fiduciarily, it's a responsible thing to do is to put the brakes on until we find out we get current on that information.
Bruce, I would support that, but except for police where we're severely shorthanded. What did you say, Jerry?
But they are, I agree in principle to that, I think, Jerry, but in the general fund, the police department is the budget.
I get it, but it takes a long time to get a cop on board, and if you freeze it, it kind of stops things.
This isn't, I'm just asking to be agendized, that discussion, and it's obviously a viable point in the discussion.
Do you have anything else to say, Jerry?
I have a comment, if I may.
Okay.
Regarding Councilmember Alden's comment, and correct me if I got this wrong, but I think what you said is you'd like to have an action item, agenda item to review the city manager execution of contracts and perhaps change the manner in which that's done and so forth. I wouldn't want to see that kind of a discussion lead into some performance evaluation in an open session about the city manager's performance.
I'm not bringing that up. This is strictly financial, Jim, that we don't know how much the money has. To be quite honest, we don't know how much money the city manager has spent. I've asked 3 times this question, and I haven't got the answer. And so if there's money being spent that we don't have, I hope you can join me in my concern of our duty to the taxpayers of the city. You're the one who brought up performance. I'm not bringing it up. I'm bringing up strictly financial.
No, I understand that, but we're in the midst of a city manager evaluation that's gone on for now several meetings, and if you're intending at the very next meeting to have an agenda action item, an open session regarding the city manager's execution of contracts and some concerns that you might have about that, I think we don't want that to veer into an open session public evaluation.
I think we could address that if that happens. That's in no way my intention or in my thought process. This is a financial responsibility that 5 people up here are elected have to the taxpayers. And the fact that I've asked for it 3 times and it's not given to me is a real concern. So, my past career was law enforcement. And you show me a crime and I'll figure out motivation. It's that simple. And that's, I have to wonder why I've asked this question 3 times but I haven't got the answer. And so I'm asking us in open session on TV for us to bring an agenda item to the council so we can look at the city policy, which may be a good policy, but there may be a need to put a sentence in there that the city council will be notified at the next available city council meeting. It's not unreasonable to ask the city manager how much money he's spending. I hope that's not out of the ordinary. That's not thinking outside the box. That's actually one of our most primary responsibilities.
You do receive the monthly warrants. That's for clarification. You want to know how the city spends its money. There is a record right there. But I do agree, there's a need.
Let's be honest. Let's talk about how the policy is being used right now, then, Mr. City Manager.
No, this is not the place or time for that. You want to request an item to go on the agenda. If a second council member supports that, then I will work with the mayor to frame it and what is the deliverable.
The deliverable is knowledge. The deliverable is for us to know what you've authorized to be spent.
True, but you just said also you were looking at changing policy and city code. Those are deliverables. That's what I'm saying.
Because the city ordinance, the city policy does not require you to tell us what you're spending. I've read it several times. And whether that was oversight whenever it was written or on purpose whenever it was written, I think is a misstep by the city council not to have such a requirement.
I will second that.
Nothing else for me, Mr. Mayor.
Do you have anything else?
Yeah, I had LAFCO met on the 3rd, and we discussed the Irish Beach District Municipal Service Review and Sphere of Influence update. There was a public hearing, and we had a public hearing on the Elk County Water District Municipal Service Review and Sphere of Influence, and we discussed a mid-year financial and work plan report. And then a reminder that we have our League of Cities region meeting this Friday at, I think the legislative part is at 1 o'clock. I think the general meeting is at 3.
Correct.
So if you have an interest in the legislative part, otherwise it would just be 3 o'clock. So.
And then for the dinner starts at 5 or 6?
6.
6. Okay.
5 o'clock for cocktails and 6 o'clock for dinner.
Matthew.
Yes, I just want to remind everybody on the 19th is coming up next Wednesday at 3:30. We will be beginning our financial committee meetings at 3:30. I'd like to join. If you'd like to join us and hear what we have to share with you all, that would be wonderful. It's at 3:30. It's going to be here next Wednesday on the 19th, financial committee meeting. Thank you.
I went to a wastewater plant meeting in Ukiah, and it was canceled 15 minutes before the meeting, and I was at the place that it's supposed to be, and I found out that I had driven down there and I had to drive back, and we never had the meeting. And so that's one of them that I did for the month, and I don't know why that they did that, because they gave no reason. And, that's not really a good way to do it, because the person from Fort Bragg also was on the road. And, anyhow, that's my...
Was that MCOG or?
Spiel on...
MSWAP.
MSWAP.
What's next, Larry?
The next item, any good and welfare?
Anybody up here?
No good and welfare. Okay.
The Redwood Region Logging Conference starts tomorrow and runs Friday and Saturday at the Utah Fairgrounds.
Okay, so the next item is a closed session item pursuant to Government Code Section 54957, Public Employee Performance Evaluation, City Manager. And if anybody would like to make public comment, they can do so now. Public comment cannot be taken after a closed session has taken place.
I just have a quick question for our city attorney. Is there any law or guideline regarding multiple performance evaluations taking place like 5 times in a row?
Not that I'm aware of.
No. So it's whatever the council wants to do, basically. Yeah.
I'm not aware of any such law.
Okay, thank you.
Two questions. Is the Where is the Finance Committee meeting?
I understand it's being held here.
It's in this building?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. And the other one is, I would like to volunteer for the ad hoc committee on the food trucks.
Just show up, we'll tell you.
You'll let me know when it's going to be?
Do that.
Thank you.
Anybody else up here? Okay, we're going to go into, and please, did you read that if you're going to stay for the results of the closed session?
If you're going to stay for the results of the closed session, you either need to be in the community center or outside of the building.
Thank you very much. Direction has been given to staff.
Okay, and closed session is over at 10 o'clock.
Yep.